Hello and welcome to this tutorial on calculated values. Calculated value question type allows users to perform mathematical functions using one or several previously defined questions. Questions are referenced using reference names, which are prepended with an underscore. Calculation statements also allow users to perform other computations without using previously defined questions, for example, when calculating dates in some desired format. Calculated values have a section to define calculation statements. Any JavaScript function can be used in a calculation statement. For more information on how to write JavaScript functions, please click the W3 School link in the video description. When using previously defined questions in a calculation statement, entering correct syntax for reference names is very important when defining the calculation statement. We shall discuss how to do so in several scenarios. The first scenario involves referencing values in the same form. When the calculation and the field you want to reference are in the same form, simply use the syntax underscore field reference on the calculation statement. Let's look at an example. We have a predefined class survey form here with integer fields, class number, number of boys, and number of girls. If we want to calculate the total number of students in the class, we shall define a calculated value called total number of students and a calculation statement. Underscore boys plus underscore girls, where boys is the reference name of the integer field for the number of boys, and girls is the reference name of the integer field for the number of girls. If we want to know the percentage ratio of the boys and girls in the class, we can define two calculation value fields, which will utilize the calculation value showing the total number of students in addition to the integer value for each gender category. Let's make the reference name for the total number of students calculated value more readable by changing it to T-student. We will then add a calculated value called percentage of boys in the class and define its calculated statement as opening brackets underscore boys divide underscore T-student, closing brackets times 100, i.e., take the number of boys divided by the total number of students in the class times 100. We will then add a calculated value called percentage of girls in the class. And define its calculated statement as opening brackets underscore girls divide underscore TS student, closing bracket times 100, i.e., take the number of girls divided by the total number of students in the class times 100. Let's go to the data viewer and see what results this gives us to illustrate the point. As you can see, if we fill in the boys and girls, the total number of students is computed and their percentages. The second scenario for using field reference in calculated values is when referencing values on a subform's parent form and from the same subform. To reference fields that are on the parent form on a subform, we will use the syntax underscore parent dot field reference, where parent refers to the parent form and the field reference is the field on the parent form. To reference fields that are on the same subform, we will use the syntax underscore field reference, where field reference is the field on the subform. Let's see an example. We have a subform here with some defined fields: exam period, subject, total marks for boys, total marks for girls. We will add a calculated value, average marks for boys, give it a reference name, AV boys, and define its calculation statement as underscore B marks divide underscore parent dot boys, where B marks is the reference name of the subform field, total marks for boys, and underscore parent dot boys is the reference for the field on the parent form, where the user records the number of boys in the class. Let's add another calculated value, average marks for girls. Give it a reference name, AV Girls, and define its calculation statement as underscore gmarks divide underscore parent.girls, where gmarks is the reference name of the subform field, total marks for girls, and underscore parent.girls is the reference for the field on the parent form where the user enters the number of girls in the class. Then finally, we can add another calculated value, average class marks. We will add a calculation statement. Opening bracket underscore AV girls plus underscore AV boys, closing bracket divide by 2, where we take the calculated values from the average of both genders and divide by 2. Let's see these calculation statements in action on the data viewer. If we have 5 girls and 5 boys, let's fill in a subform. If we enter that the boys scored 450 total marks, you can see that the average for boys is 90, i.e. 450 divided by 5. If we enter that the girls scored a total of 460, you can see that the average for girls is 92, i.e. 460 divided by 5. Then the class average changes to 91, i.e. 90 plus 92 divided by 2. The third scenario for using field references in calculated values is when referencing values on a subform from the parent form. To reference fields that are on subforms on the parent form, we will use the syntax underscore subform reference dot field. Reference where subform reference is the reference name of the subform, and field reference is the reference name of the field in the subform. Let's see an example. Let's add a label here called Class Marks Report 2025. We will add a reference name report to the subform, as it is empty by default. Then on the parent form, we will define a few calculated value fields. The first one is average marks for math. We will define a calculation statement that fetches only data from subforms where math was selected as the subject. Poimapper has an additional field on calculated values called filtering criteria when summing values from data points. We will also add a calculation statement here, but it has to return either true or false, i.e., we are creating a filter for the data we want computed for the calculation value. Therefore, our filter condition will be underscore report.subject equals math. Where report is the reference name of the subform and subject is the reference name of the subject text field with a validation list. On this filter condition, if the value in the subform entered for the subject field is not math, it will be ignored. Thus, it will compute only those subforms where math was selected as the subject. Let's repeat the same pattern for 2 other subjects. If we go to the data viewer and add some data, you can see that the averages are not being computed. This is a classic problem involving calculated statements that include other calculated values in their summation computations. If summing is only being done on real number and integer field types, it's straightforward that it's a numeric calculation. However, since calculation values can also return strings, the system defaults to giving calculated values string operations. Thus, our numeric summation is not being done. To make sure the system recognizes calculated fields as numeric values only, go to the Form Builder. The calculation values involved in computing the average marks is the average class marks. We shall enable the setting only numeric values allowed on it. Let's save and go to the data viewer. As you can see, the averages for all subjects have been computed for the year 2025. The system is fetching the averages for math, which had 3 entries with the values 90, 89, 85, and dividing them by 3 to get 88. English has 2 entries with averages 83, 77, so the year's average is 80. Science has 4 entries 81, 83, 65, 70, so the year's average is 74.75. Thank you for watching Part 1 of our Calculated Values tutorial. You can proceed to watch Part 2, which covers Scenario 4 of the syntax to use with field references in calculation statements, as well as the usage of JavaScript functions. If you have further questions, contact us at support@poimapper.com.